Tonight, never-before-seen video shows the moment the Chattanooga Motorcar Festival came to a screeching halt. Good evening. I'm Josh Rowe.
And I'm Latricia Thomas. Organizers promised fans an experience they wouldn't forget. But because of that one moment, one course worker can't even remember what happened in the crash that changed his life. For Jeff Banker, the stands were never close enough.
It's the speed.
The place he found the most happiness at a racetrack.
The adrenaline, it's just so much fun.
Hugging the edge of the course with a flag in hand.
I was basically a safety worker, basically what we call a corner worker or a corner marshal.
Jeff and his fellow corner guards, an extra set of eyes for the drivers pushing the limits.
If I see something or hear something or smell something, I'm also giving information to the driver via the use of flags and hand signals.
But on this day in October, as a new event launched on Chattanooga's riverfront, Jeff is the one who faced danger.
That was probably 7:15, 7:30 in the morning. And that's the last thing I remember. I don't remember anything after that.
This video is part of the Chattanooga Police investigative file. We got our hands on it through an open records request. It shows what Jeff doesn't remember.
No damage, no nothing, and that's what he's out.
As Jeff works his corner with another volunteer, something goes wrong on the course in front of him. The 1969 Lola plows into this orange plastic barrier, sending it careening into the air and directly into Jeff. His wife, Sammy, got the phone call she'll never forget.
And said, "You're not going to like what I'm about to say." And then he told me that Jeff had been injured.
Doctors told Jeff he flatlined twice. Now a different view from the camera inside the car. At the corner of your screen, you can see the speed at the time of impact. What happened in just seconds meant a months-long recovery.
2 broken wrists, one of them broken, one of them completely shattered. Broken collarbone, clavicle, punctured lung. All my ribs were broken except for 2 of them.
It took him probably 2 or 3 days before he knew where he was. It's like, when is this going to end?
And despite the pain, he says he lives with every day still. Those stands that were never close enough for Jeff, he says he's not ready to take a seat.
I just get 1 more year in and then call it done. Because right now it's extremely uncomfortable to even stand up and walk.
30 years of experience now in jeopardy because of a split-second crash. And there is so much more to this story. Jeff's attorney says what happened here is not a tragic accident, but something that could have been prevented. We've been asking questions and filing open records requests for months, most centering around this orange barrier that hit Jeff. They are typically known as water barriers, but we discovered that day these barriers were empty and not weighted down. In the weeks ahead, you'll learn why organizers say they left them empty on purpose, the legal battle brewing over this crash, and who is tasked with making sure the track is safe for the second event coming up this fall. A near-fatal crash at the Chattanooga Motorcar Festival last fall raises questions about the course setup and why this barrier went flying into the air. For 4 months, we've been asking those questions. When we couldn't get answers, we turned to public records requests. Tonight, in part 2 of our investigative series, what happened to cause the driver of the car to crash and what we discovered about the barrier that started it all. Pictures show just a snapshot. of Jeff Banker's 30-year career on a racetrack.
And I've absolutely loved being an official.
From the edge of the course, he let drivers know about any hazards ahead.
I was basically a safety worker, basically what we call a corner worker.
But Jeff and his attorney say it was a planned part of this course that proved to be the most dangerous hazard for Jeff that October day. Watch as the race car slams into this orange barrier, taking out Jeff and a second corner worker. Starting the day of the accident, we ask race organizers time after time if the barriers were filled with water. For months, no answer. We got our hands on this incident report from the Chattanooga Police, which says mechanical issues caused the 1969 Lola replica to hit the 6-foot barrier. Spec sheets for the Guardian 100 barricade say it's, quote, well fortified when filled with water or sand, but empty, it weighs just 100 pounds. In the police report, confirmation that those barriers were not filled with water.
The barrier went airborne. The barrier was not filled with water.
Jeff remembers nothing about this moment. His memory kicks back in days later in the hospital.
And I looked around and went, where am I and what is going on?
But one person who does remember, the driver behind the wheel that day. His description is part of the Chattanooga Police Department investigative file.
I felt the steering do that. And once it did that, it wouldn't turn back.
Dennis Olthoff says even he was surprised when that barrier flew 30 feet in the air.
I can't believe it moved that barrier.
We spent months reaching out to experts looking for concrete guidance on the safest way to use these barriers around cars going at a high rate of speed, but could only find guidelines for work zones. We tracked the barricade through 4 different companies to locate the manufacturer, ArmorCast. Sales manager Savan Gazorian told us this is an example of their product being improperly used. It's meant to be used on construction sites. Jeff says he lives with the consequences of that decision every day.
It's been extremely painful.
And those pictures he has to remember his 3 decades of racing, they've been replaced with the pictures his attorney is gathering as evidence as he tries to hold someone accountable in court.
Jeff has gone through some of the most extreme injuries you could expect to sustain and still be alive.
So whose job was it to keep this from happening? Derek Hayes, Jeff's attorney, says he's still pinpointing who his upcoming lawsuit will name. And we finally did get a statement from the Chattanooga Motorcar Festival. They say the marker that you see here was hit following an unusual mechanical failure, and it was intended for directional purposes only, and therefore not weighted. They also say out of an abundance of caution, the festival took immediate action following the incident to remove those similar markers. You can see here they replaced them with these large hay bales. You can read the rest of their statement on our website, newschannel9.com. Next week, in part 3 of our investigative series, the changes the city of Chattanooga is making and how they regulate these type of events and why they are the only government agency even looking into what happened. The city of Chattanooga is promising changes after this happened at last fall's Chattanooga Motorcar Festival. For months, we've been asking questions, requesting these public documents, and looking for safety guidelines to pinpoint what went wrong that led to these course workers' devastating injuries. Tonight, in the third part of our investigation, finally, some answers to those questions from the city officials you pay to keep you safe. The backdrop of Chattanooga's riverfront can make any event memorable. But on this October day,
It's running a Chevrolet V8 engine.
it wasn't the cars on the course that Jeff Banker will remember. In fact, because of this split-second crash.
My memory is not what it was.
He can't recall anything about this orange barrier flying through the air. We later learned from the police report it wasn't filled with water. Jeff says the impact broke almost all of his ribs, both wrists, and changed his life forever.
It's been extremely painful.
After 4 months of asking questions, race organizers finally told us they left these barriers empty on purpose. Their reason? They say the barriers were, quote, not intended for safety purposes, only as directional markers for the drivers. After the crash, organizers removed the empty barriers and police interviewed the driver. This body cam footage is part of their investigative file.
It's not any kind of criminal investigation.
So who is tasked with determining what went wrong? The police report shows the NTSB said this did not meet their criteria to respond or investigate. Because Jeff is a volunteer and not a paid employee, workplace safety rules enforced by TOSHA are out too. That took us to Ben Taylor and the city of Chattanooga.
These are some of their drawings that they did showing where they'll be racing inside of this area.
Through open records request, we received hundreds of pages of documents, including the permit and traffic plan for the time trial. What this does not show, the empty water barriers on the course itself.
We didn't go in depth into the course review because, like I said, we wanted to leave that to the people that knew what they were doing.
Motorcar Festival organizers told us they, quote, relied upon experienced racing consultants to advise on the course. But the city says that won't be enough next year. For one thing, the city wants to be part of an on-site inspection.
What we want is someone, a professional organization, to certify that they believe this course design is as safe as it could be for what's going to be on the street.
And this time, they want it in writing.
Do you think that the city would allow them to use these water barriers empty on the course again?
Depends on where they are. So I wouldn't say no for anything like that because if they're anywhere where a vehicle could hit it, you create a projectile situation, so that would be negative.
Jeff has an attorney who's gathering evidence for a future lawsuit, but he says despite what happened here, he'd like to return to the track.
The adrenaline, it's just so much fun.
This time with the kind of memories that don't come with the scars he still carries. So what else is changing? The city is also adding Hamilton County EMS to their event planning. So if another accident like this happens, they'll know the fastest way to get to those hurt. And festival organizers are also promising safety changes, but they wouldn't sit down with us to explain or tell us specifics. They've already announced they'll be coming back after year 2, saying they, quote, have the full support of the city of Chattanooga. I asked Ben Taylor about that. He says as long as they meet the new requirements, they'll discuss it, but nothing is set on their end yet.